The slap landed before the words. Lina Okoye staggered sideways as the phone flew out of her hand and smashed against the wall, shattering on impact. The sound echoed through the living room, sharp and final, and for a moment no one moved. Victor Black stood across from her, jaw tight, eyes cold. "You will not raise your voice at me again," he said calmly. Lina's cheek burned, but she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She looked past him, to the floor-to-ceiling windows, to the city skyline she had once believed was hers. "This is my house," she said quietly. Victor smiled, slow and deliberate. "Not anymore." Helena Okoye, who had been seated silently on the leather couch, rose to her feet. "Victor," she said evenly, "let's not do this theatrically." He turned to her, surprised by her calm. "You knew this was coming?" Helena didn't argue. She reached for Lina's hand and squeezed it once. Firm, grounding. The security men stepped in then, not aggressively, just efficiently. Lina felt the shift, the invisible line where a marriage became a transaction. Victor extended a document folder toward her. "You signed," he said. "The trust restructuring, the property transfer." Lina stared at the papers, recognition sinking in like cold water. "That was for tax protection," she whispered. "For me," Victor corrected. "You trusted me." He leaned in. "That was your mistake." By the time Lina was escorted out of the mansion, night had fallen. Rain poured down hard, soaking her hair, her dress, the thin dignity she was clinging to. The gates slid shut behind her with a mechanical finality that made her chest ache. Helena stood beside her in the rain, perfectly composed, at her coat already soaked through. "He took the house," Lina said, her voice flat. Helena nodded. "I know." A black car pulled up. Victor's window rolled down. "I'll have your things delivered," he said. "What I deem reasonable." He handed Lina an envelope. "An invitation," he added. "You should come." Lina opened it with trembling fingers. Victor Black and Madison Carter, the date, the venue, the audacity. "My replacement?" Lina asked softly. Victor's lips curved. "My upgrade?" Helena met his gaze without blinking. "You took my daughters home," she said quietly. Victor shrugged. "I protected my assets." Helena smiled then, not warmly, not kindly. "Enjoy your wedding," she said. "You wanted a show." The car drove off. That night, the internet erupted. Billionaire divorces Nigerian heiress. Luxury estate reclaimed. The wedding announced with American socialite Madison Carter. Madison's page gained followers by the thousands. She posted smiling photos, inspirational captions, carefully curated sympathy. Lina stayed offline. She sat at the dining table in Helena's apartment, fingers wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. "So," Lina said finally, "what's the plan?" Helena didn't answer immediately. She opened her laptop instead. On the screen, files, folders, timelines. "Victor Black has a pattern," Helena said. "He marries women with assets. He restructures. He exits clean." "He thinks this is clean," Lina replied. Helena looked at her daughter. "That's because he's looking at the mirror." Lina leaned forward. Helena continued. "Madison Carter is not the problem. She's bait. The real weakness is Victor's belief that legality equals morality." Lina nodded slowly. "So we don't attack?" "No," Helena said. "We let him perform." Over the next week, they worked quietly. No shouting, no public statements, no leaks. Lina revisited documents she had once trusted blindly. Helena contacted people she hadn't spoken to in years, lawyers, auditors, journalists who respected precision over drama. They didn't fabricate anything. They organized truth. Victor, meanwhile, grew bolder. He sent Lina messages disguised as courtesy. "Victor, you'll be comfortable if you behave." "Victor, don't embarrass yourself at the wedding." Madison posted a video in a white dress, laughing. "New beginnings," she said. Grateful. Helena watched it once. She doesn't know, Lina said. Helena closed the screen. She will. 2 nights before the wedding, Victor called Helena. You've been very quiet, he said. I'm grieving, Helena replied smoothly. He laughed. Good. You always were practical. He paused. You're attending, I hope. Helena smiled. Of course. On the morning of the wedding, the cathedral buzzed with anticipation. Media vans lined the streets. Guests in silk and diamonds filled the pews. Madison Carter stepped out of her car glowing, confident, unaware. Victor stood at the altar, relaxed, victorious. Helena and Lina took their seats in the front row. Helena reached for her daughter's hand and squeezed it once. Ready? She asked. Lina exhaled. He thinks today is about love. Helena's eyes stayed on Victor. That, she said softly, is why it will hurt. The lights dimmed. The ceremony began. And somewhere between the first vow and the final promise, the trap quietly closed. Subscribe and drop a comment, because Part 2 begins the moment Victor Black realizes the wedding is no longer his stage, it's his mirror. Victor Black was smiling when the officiant asked the guests to rise. It was the smile of a man who believed the hardest part of his life was already behind him. He adjusted his cufflinks, glanced at Madison Carter beside him, radiant, excited, unaware, and exhaled slowly. This was victory. In the front row, Helena Okoye sat perfectly still. Lina sat beside her, spine straight, face unreadable. Her heartbeat was steady now. The fear had burned out days ago. What remained was clarity. The officiant began. We are gathered here today. Phones vibrated across the cathedral. One, then another, then dozens. Victor noticed the distraction and frowned slightly. He glanced at his best man, who was staring at his phone, color draining from his face. Madison leaned in. Is something wrong? Nothing, Victor said quickly. But his phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. The officiant continued. Before we proceed, a low murmur rippled through the pews. A journalist near the aisle stood abruptly and stepped outside, phone pressed to his ear. Victor's jaw tightened. Helena finally moved. She reached for Lina's hand and squeezed it once. Now, she whispered. At that exact moment, the cathedral doors opened quietly. Not dramatically, not forcefully. 2 men in tailored suits stepped inside and took seats near the back. Victor recognized them instantly, his lawyers. His pulse spiked. He pulled his phone out. 27 missed calls. One notification sat at the top of his screen, glowing like a wound. Court filing accepted. Asset fraud and coercive transfer. Victor's breath caught. Madison noticed his change in expression. Victor? He didn't answer. The officiant hesitated. Sir, should we pause? No, Victor snapped. Continue. But the murmurs were louder now. Guests were openly checking their phones. Whispers spread like smoke. Did you see the filing? Isn't that his ex-wife's property? Oh my God, it's public. Madison's smile faltered. Victor, what's happening? He turned toward the front row. Helena Okoye met his gaze calmly. No anger, no triumph, just certainty. Victor understood then. This wasn't chaos, it was choreography. He stepped away from the altar and walked toward Helena, lowering his voice. What did you do? Helena looked up at him. Nothing you didn't do to yourself. You think paperwork will save her? He hissed. I followed the law. You abused timing, Helena replied. You exploited trust. The law doesn't like that when it's proven. Madison stood frozen behind him. Victor? He ignored her. You can still stop this, Victor said quietly. Withdraw the filing. Helena tilted her head. You already transferred the house. Irreversibly. Lina spoke for the first time. You taught me to trust you, she said evenly. My mistake. My mother taught me to document. Victor looked at her, truly looked at her, and realized the daughter he thought was broken had never been alone. Sirens wailed faintly outside. Not police, not yet. News vans, more media. Victor's lawyer rushed down the aisle. You need to come with us, now. Madison's voice shook. Victor, why is everyone looking at us? Helena rose slowly. The movement drew attention like gravity. I believe, Helena said clearly, her voice carrying without effort, this is where we end the performance. The officiant stepped back, confused. Helena turned to Madison. You should know, she said gently, that the house he took from my daughter was acquired through coercion while she was medically vulnerable. That evidence is now public. Madison's face drained of color. Victor opened his mouth. No words came out. Helena continued. I stayed silent because silence makes men like him reckless. She looked back at Victor. You took my daughter's home, she said calmly. You mistook legality for immunity. Phones were fully raised now. No one was pretending anymore. Madison took a step back. Is this true? Victor grabbed her wrist. Don't do this here, she pulled away. Answer me. Helena watched, unmoved. Lina stood. The sound of her heels on stone echoed louder than any shout. You invited me here to humiliate me, Lina said to Victor. Instead, you gave us witnesses. Madison stared at Lina, then at Helena, then at Victor. You said she was unstable, Madison whispered. You said she was emotional. Victor snapped. You don't understand. Madison removed her ring and let it fall. The sound was small, final. I won't marry a man who steals homes from women and calls it business, she said, voice trembling but firm. She turned and walked out. The cathedral erupted. Victor stood frozen. Helena leaned in close, her voice only for him now. This was the show, she said. You wanted ownership. You got exposure. Security approached cautiously, not to arrest, but to contain. Victor's lawyer whispered urgently, We need to leave. Victor looked around at the faces staring back at him. No admiration, no fear, only judgment. As he was escorted away, Victor turned once more toward Helena. You think you won, he said hoarsely. Helena met his gaze. I think you learned. The doors closed behind him. Silence followed. Then applause, not loud, not celebratory, respectful. Lina exhaled slowly. Helena squeezed her hand again. Your house will be returned, Helena said softly. But more importantly, he will never touch you again. Lina nodded, eyes burning. Thank you. Helena's voice softened. I promised you safety. I delivered it late, but completely. Outside, headlines were already forming. Inside, mother and daughter walked out together. Not broken, not vengeful, untouchable. If this ending moved you, subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments. Because sometimes the strongest revenge isn't loud, it's precise.